So welcome to January's challenge. So here I'm going to be giving you a free copy of this sunflower illustration. This can be downloaded and printed yourself at home. So I've added different colours to my dawn painting just to simplify the background and make it more achievable for doing in colouring pencils. So first of all, you don't have to use the colours that are given, you can use your own colours. So I don't have a teal pencil, so I'm going to be making a teal from the yellow and the blue. So think about what colours you've got available to you, what colours you might need to add. It's easier to begin with if you just stick to 5 or 6 colours. So I'm going to start with that for now and see how I get on. So first of all, it's good with colouring pencils to maybe work from the top down so that you're not putting your hand on top of the drawing. That's going to keep it nice and clean. Now, one technique that you could use to complete the background is to put your hand over the top of your pencil so you can see how sharp this is. Now that's going to give you a really soft, smooth tone in that background. And again, you can still do different directions to really build it up. It's also going to speed up the process considerably. So this technique is particularly good when you want to cover large areas. So at the moment I'm using a really soft pressure, so I'm trying to just fill in that texture that's been created through the slight texture of this paper. So I'm pressing as softly as I can, but I'm making sure to fill all those little white spaces in. So I'm going to be focusing on this top area up here, but you're welcome to start wherever you'd like. So I'm going to start this drawing in a relatively simple way. So I'm going to be applying a medium pressure. So it's not the full pressure of a burnished, very smooth and shiny technique. It's actually just to get the colour down. So at the moment, I'm just going to focus on colouring each petal in kind of simple colours. So that's going to be blue, that's going to be blue, that's going to be peach, that's going to be orange, for example. And I would just continue finding little blue spaces, and that's just going to help you orientate where you are on the image. So next I'm using a slightly darker blue, so I think this is ultramarine blue. And again, I'm working on craftsmanship, so I'm still layering and going in different directions, but I am attempting to stay within the lines. So this is my drawing so far. As you can see, I've used that medium pressure in all of the shapes to get some colour on here. Now this is a really good example of good craftsmanship and really good outcome if you are a beginner artist. So next I'm just going to be showing you how I'm going to add a few more layers of colour using some different pencils. So these are the original 6 colours that I've been using. So as you can see, I've got a light and a dark yellow, a peach, a light and a dark blue, a green and a pink. So here I'm going to be just using a few more colours to add a little bit more depth. So firstly, I'm going to brighten up some areas by pressing a little bit harder. So I'm actually going to be using the turquoise for this because I didn't have a turquoise to begin with, and this is just going to lift that colour a little bit. So as you can see now, I'm having to add on less layers. There's already 2 layers at least of pencil on here. So really I'm just adding to the vibrancy of the colour. So for example, I might add a little bit more 3-dimensionality to these circles by just shading parts of them in. This is going to give it a little bit more variety and a little bit more life. So if I want some of the shapes to go a little bit further into the distance, I'm just going to be shading on top with a cooler colour. So you can still see the peach showing through, but it's not going to be quite so dominant. I'm also going to be adding what we call hatching into the background, just to give this a little bit more texture, so that we haven't got the same sort of marks all of the way over the piece. So this is deliberate texture. So next I'm just going to be adding a little bit of purple into some of this peach. So this is a very big area just to have one colour. So I'm just going to be adding a 2-tone effect by adding in a few more shadows. So I'm just going to use the original peach colour just to blend a little bit of that in. Next I'm going to do some blending with this light cream colour. So I'm going to be pressing a little bit harder into some of these areas that are in the highlight section. So this isn't really changing the colour, but it's just giving the pencil a bit more variety in texture. And I can also bring some of this into the blue to mix my own purple. That's going to help tie some of these shapes together. So here I'm adding a little bit of hatching just to give this centre a little bit more detail. Okay, so now I'm really going to think about the tone. Now there's already black lines on here, that's going to help create a little bit of depth. Now I'm going to actually look a little bit more closely at this and just think about where it needs to be a little bit darker. So as the petals come towards the centre of the flower, they bend in and down, so that's a good place to put a little shadow. But also think about outlining some of the lines that are already there to make them a little bit thicker. So this is when you're going to really work into that paper texture and get rid of any of the little white parts that are showing back through. Another good thing to do is just to do a little bit of blending with some lighter colours. This is really going to help smooth your background out. So you could use a white for this. I'm using a cream. Here I'm just adding a little bit more life into the background again with some hatching and scumbling. So scumbling is when you scribble but in a very, very small area. So this is really going to help this sunflower come alive with lots of different textures. So these lines have just injected a little bit of energy that I love so much. So download your free challenge and I'd love to see what you do in my Facebook group.